Flossie and Fitz had a dining table right by the end of the extended stage area. "Aren't we lucky?" she asked him. There was a kind of runway decked out in pink carpeting, so that Brenda Subi could dance her way to the front, so that she would be almost amongst her audience of grateful, worshipping fans. "Oh, we're in the limelight here," said Flossie. "Look at the fake stars on the backdrop. This is real show business, this, isn't it? Oh, wasn't I clever to get us good seats?" "Oh, it's marvelous," sighed Flossie, who had only ever dreamed of such things. "And to think," she reminded herself, "just yesterday I was slaving in that hellish kitchen. Oh, Mr. Brewster, why can't you be here with me instead of this surly boy?" A bucket of ice and a bottle of champagne had appeared out of nowhere. Compliments, they were told, of a very shady character a few tables away, who nodded at them a few times from under his hat. Flossie quickly assumed that the gift to be a tribute to her and fluttered her eyelashes accordingly. Fitz thought there was probably more to it than that. There usually was. But he was gagging for a drink and decided to take the risk. The two of them had visited a boutique in the late afternoon and togged themselves out for a night on the town. Fitz was in a velvet leopard skin number with snakeskin shoes. Flossie had been decked out in ruffles of silk. Now she looked like a box of chocolates and seemed entirely delighted with the effect. They sat back, drank the bubbly, lit a couple of cocktail cigarettes, and then the house lights dimmed and Brenda Subi stepped out on stage. She had smooth coffee-coloured skin and hair piled high. She was a belter. She virtually shouted every word of every song she sang. Somehow Fitz had been expecting something gentler, something, well, a bit more easy on the ear. "Goodness," said Flossie, as the house lights popped on for the interval. "Gives it her all, doesn't she?" Flossie turned to look at the feather boa Brenda Subi had left strewn, like a throttled anaconda, on the stage at the end of her last song. She rather fancied herself in a feather boa. Flossie," Fitz was saying now, in that whining, grumbling voice of his. "Hush now, Fitzy boy. We're staying for the second act, and that's that. I know it's not your kind of thing, but... Oh." She was startled because the shady-looking man in the hat who had sent the now quite empty bottle of champagne to their table was standing right behind Fitz. He was standing there rather menacingly, it had to be said. "He's got a gun wedged right into my ribcage," Fitz explained to her. "Either that, or he's extremely pleased to see me." Be Katharine Hepburn, Flossie thought. Come out with something witty and beguiling, and put the gangster right off his stroke. "Oh, help!" she whimpered instead. "What are we going to do?"
"You two are gonna come with me,"
said the man in the hat, grinding out the words between perfectly square teeth. Okay, said Fitz. "We'll come quietly."
"Wait! He can't do anything here. He can't shoot you here."
"What?" said Fitz, looking anguished.
"I'm right, aren't I? If you shoot my friend through his skinny little ribcage here and now, then you're gonna draw an awful lot of attention to yourself, aren't you? You're gonna blow his measly little guts right across the stage area and up the star-spangled backdrop. And then everyone in this place is going to see exactly what you're about. They'll see what a nasty little man you are."
Fitz's eyes had widened in horror.
"Just you sit there, Fitz. He can't threaten you in here. Everyone would see. And he wouldn't want that, whatever his funny business is."
Fitz looked as if he wanted to cry.
"All right. You got a point, fat lady."
"Fat lady? How dare you?
I'm going back to my table now, till the end of the show. But after that, you two are coming with me. Okay?
He stepped back smartly, leaving Fitz to breathe sharply and slump forward at their table in immense relief.
Fitz, you're such a wuss.
Bugger you!
Well, that wasn't a proper interval, I don't think. There wasn't even time to go and powder my nose.
You old bag! You could have had me killed!
But I didn't, did I? Now, be a dear and keep quiet, will you? Old Brenda's coming back on.
Brenda Subi was indeed back on stage. The audience sighed with vast collective pleasure as she launched into her next bout of decorous yodeling. Only after a few minutes did he realize what he was listening to Brenda Subi singing.
Hey,
He leaned forward and whispered to Flossie.
that's a bloody Beatles medley.
That's right. Her version of Hey Jude pisses on Paul McCartney's, doesn't it?
The second half of the concert seemed to go on for the rest of Fitz's life. He couldn't be sure what put him under the greater emotional strain. The gunman at his back, the rapturous size of the ungainly head cook, or the hysterical warbling of the superstar on stage. All in all, his poor nerves were shattered.
All right, Fitzy boy, we're in terrible danger here, as you well know. Mostly from that horrible man with a gun who's staring so intently at that oh-so-tender and vulnerable nape of your neck. What I suggest we do is make a break for it.
But how, he wondered. Where? The press of the departing crowd, once the lights were up, would hold them back, sure as anything. It would make them an easy target for the gangster-type person.
There's only one direction we can run in. Somewhere he'll never fire after us.
He looked up, horrified, into Flossie's pasty, nodding face. Oh no. Brenda Subi had at last reached her climax. The applause was immense.
Now, Fitz!
She grabbed his skinny arms, launched herself out of her seat, and the two of them, to the gasps and shrieks of the audience, were barreling at top speed, full throttle into Brenda Subi herself. In the audience, pandemonium broke out. There were screams, shouts, and stamping of feet, a gigantic roar of disapproval. Story of my bleeding life, Fitz thought crossly, and above it all, he could hear shots being fired. In the wings, the stagehands were going crazy. The orchestra was scattering, terrified. Then the heavy stage curtains dropped with a thump, and Fitz was, actually to his immense relief, knocked out cold. John Fuchsius thought he was alone that night. Alone and safe in his mogul's ranch, far from prying eyes. Safe from the lenses and the gossips of the world's most famous director, relaxing at home the way he knew best. Free from wagging tongues and fan speculation about his newest projects. In his basement, he had the lights down low, and he was lying full length on a pasteboard model of the surface of a world of ice. He was absolutely in that world. His whole concentration was wrapped up in believing that this planet's miniature landscape was real. Across that scale model came marching hundreds of tiny men, stiff-jointed, plastic-limbed, and through the skies of that planet roved spaceships of all descriptions. This was the necessary work of imagining. It was the earliest stages of invention. It might have looked like he was playing with the merchandise from his first movie in the trilogy, but actually he was plotting out the maneuvers for the next one. Oh, what wouldn't his millions of fans worldwide give for just a glimpse, the merest glimpse of what the great man was playing at. He was a short, stocky man in a short-sleeved plaid shirt and faded jeans. Immense fame hadn't changed him one bit. He was still just the same guy underneath. So caught up in plotting the next chapter of the myth was he, that he completely forgot he had buzzed in visitors for the night. And so caught up in his new story was he never heard the door at the top of the basement stairs creak open just a tad. He never heard von Arnim's tiny army at all. The first he knew about the disturbance was when Captain Wilberforce in his hands turned to look over his shoulder and saw the 2-foot-tall, 5-headed hydra galumphing up the pasteboard valley. John Fuchsius watched in amazed horror as one of those glistening savage beaks darted forward and bit off the head of the hero of the hour. He hadn't quite worked out what was happening yet, but whatever it was, it had ruined his work. He blinked and saw that in addition to the horrific hydra thing, there were bat creatures, flying zombies and pterodactyls swarming about his head. An army of skeletons with swords came marching across his world. A brontosaurus, 3 gorgons and several yeti were storming the stronghold of his heroes.
What's happening?
Fuchsius raged, as if he expected personal assistance to come running out of the shadows. Instead came the deranged and wild-haired Ron von Arnim, brandishing his rifle on the cellar stairs.
Good evening, John. I guess you could say we've come round to play.
Ron, gasped Fuchsius. What are they? Little robots? How did you do this? How can they live like this?
Shut up, von Arnim snapped. You think I'd give away my secrets to the likes of you? After what you've done to me?
Fuchsius struggled to remain upright as the menagerie snapped at his sneakered heels. What are you talking about, Ron? What have I done to you?
Ha!
Jeered Ron, and roughly forced the director to sit in a wooden chair. Ron made a savage cutting gesture in the air, and all his hideous familiars fell silent as one.
I mean it, Ron. What have I done to you? Why are you so mad at me? I employed you when nobody else in the industry would, when you're supposed to be washed up and finished. Shut up!
A dribble of blood ran down Fuchsius's face. There was real terror in his eyes. Even he could see how real this was becoming.
Ron, you know I love your work, all those old monster movies. Well, they're exactly what inspired me in the first place, and set me off on my own career of making movie magic and dreams come true.
Ron jeered.
Yeah, you set off to become one of the most successful movie makers of all time. You took my genre and you bought it up wholesale and traded it in for a life I can only dream of. And then you spit on me.
Spit on you? How? I gave you a contract. You're designing poodles for me. You're meant to be constructing them now.
Fuchsius could see that Ron was clearly unhinged, and that there was to be no reasoning with him. Fuchsius's eyes widened as he looked across to the open-plan lounge area and saw Angie, standing there with a poodle and what appeared to be Noel Coward.
Oh yeah, Ron said. I brought some other friends too.
Noel coughed and decided this was clearly the moment at which he should intercede. He marched over briskly. Good evening, John. He turned smartly to Ron. Don't you think this has gone far enough, Ron?
Far enough?
Cried the special effects man.
He's gonna ruin me. I've seen the future, remember? I know what happens.
That's as maybe, clipped Noel. But that doesn't give you the right to torture cinematic visionaries in their own homes.
Cinematic visionaries nothing. I'm a cinematic visionary, you English queer.
You're Noel Coward,
Fuchsius gasped. He looked at von Arnim.
Is he one of your homunculi too?
Noel shuddered. Thankfully not, Mr. Fuchsius. I am, happily, quite real and of my own ineffable invention.
But you're dead, wailed Fuchsius. You died 5 or 6 years ago.
One of my lesser-known attributes is my ability to manipulate my own timeline. Good, isn't it? Fuchsius was astounded. That, said Noel calmly, is why I am here, far beyond my own death. And I am here for a specific purpose, John Fuchsius.
To set this maniac on me?
Indeed not, said Coward with hauteur. Mr. von Arnim seems to have an agenda of his own, one which I find alarming to say the least. Von Arnim swore at him. I am here to see that your movie of The True History of Planets goes ahead as planned.
Oh yeah? Said Fuchsius. Well, it's going to anyway. As long as this freak doesn't give me a heart attack with his toys.
I need to ensure that your projected movie has the required degree of verisimilitude, said Coward. Fritter slunk out from behind Angie then, and straightened up onto his hind legs with some relief. The time for subterfuge was over, if it had ever began.
I think,
Fritter said,
that Noel is talking about putting you in touch with the dog world.
Fuchsius just stared at the talking poodle.